Countries like the United States haven't given the international system a chance. They have they've imposed their own thinking on the world. Let's go back and give the international system a chance. Let's build the institutions up. Let's treat countries with dignity. Let's not try to beggar your neighbor with countries, where you allow countries to essentially get poorer and poorer, trying to export their way out of debt, which is impossible. Let's come up with a different economic foundation. Let's invest in each other and so on.
Joining me today is Vijay Prashad. He's the director for Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. He's also a writer, a historian, and a Marxist. You believe China is going to build a world with peace, but we see this constant demonization from the Western mainstream media that constantly depict China as this evil force gonna take over their lunch, their jobs. But then in the work report, she said China will never seek hegemony or engage in expansionism. Do you think China will be another colonizer?
You see, I would like to take seriously the idea that China is not seeking hegemony. And I think it's not just whether the Chinese government says it or not. It's because the world is going in a different direction. We are seeing around the world the growth of regionalism. I was in Brazil recently, interviewed Fernando Haddad, who's running to be the governor of Sao Paulo state, interviewed Lula, and they are very interested in leading a South American, a Latin American regional development perspective. We are seeing in Africa, there are calls for African regional development. People want regional development. That's the way forward for the world. They don't want one single power to be dominating. So whether China is interested in seeking to be the world's hegemon or not is not the point. The point is the real movement of history is moving towards regionalism. And I think that's something recognized in China, which is why Chinese documents, including in Xi Jinping's report and speech, they talk about the importance of multipolarity, regionalism, multilateral diplomacy, etc. We know the terms, but underneath all that is a real movement towards regionalism. And that's something that the United States right now cannot stomach. But I must say, the people of the United States must come to terms with the changes in the world. They must. It's in fact not China or other countries that needs to come to terms with reality. The United States needs to come to terms with reality.
Because we all see this new trend that countries from different continents are aligning with each other, working with each other, trying to build multipolarity in the world. So there's a new global order is forming. So in this formation of a new global order, can China play a role in your opinion?
Well, I do remember the time when in the group of 77, which is the group of the South in the UN, there's the group of seven, which is the major triadic countries, Japan, Europe, United States, and so on. Then there's the group of 77, which was the developing countries. China wasn't a member of the group of 77, but used to vote alongside the G77. All those resolutions were called G77 plus C, where C was China. China would kind of stay outside but join, eventually giving its immense strength and prestige. But now I see something different. And now I see actually China getting involved in these initiatives. And I'm very pleased with that. It's a welcome development. For instance, when Venezuela established the group of friends in defense of the UN Charter, very important bloc of countries, includes most of the countries under US sanctions, including Russia and China and so on, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, you name it, Bolivia, Eritrea. This grouping is important because look at what they are saying. Group of friends in defense of the UN Charter. What's interesting to me is that China is actually not saying, and most of these countries are not saying, let's establish a new system. They are not saying that. What they are saying is, let's return to the UN Charter. The UN Charter is actually the greatest consensus document in the world, because 194 countries have actually signed the UN Charter. They have treaty obligations to the UN Charter. There's no other document, that's got as much global consensus. That is the most highly, consensus-oriented document. I would wish that the Communist Manifesto was the greatest, but it's not. It's the UN Charter. So, what these countries are saying is, let's go back and take seriously the UN Charter. The UN is a very flawed institution. It's in the middle of power battles and so on. But the Charter is actually quite a good document. And I find this interesting. I don't believe that China and other countries want to actually establish a new system. I don't believe that. I believe that what they're saying is, we already have a system, an international system, and countries like the United States haven't given the international system a chance. They've imposed their own thinking on the world. Let's go back and give the international system a chance. Let's build the institutions up. Let's treat countries with dignity. Let's not try to beggar your neighbor with countries, where you allow countries to essentially get poorer and poorer, trying to export their way out of debt, which is impossible. Let's come up with a different economic foundation. Let's invest in each other and so on. This is actually not new thinking. This is all there in the UN Charter. So I'm very happy to see not only China, but other major powers, including India, with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO. The SCO effectively, in my opinion, is just an organization in the UN system. It's a regional organization. It's like a CELAC in Latin America, which has been established by Brazil, the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. We would like to see more regional development, because regional organizations are part of the UN understanding of how internationalism has to be built. So it's not, you don't have to, invent a new thing. I don't think anybody wants to do that. What they want to do is to give the international order that we all established in the 1940s, 50s, through the non-aligned movement and so on. Give the international order a chance. Tell the great powers that want to be imperialists to go back to their countries and tend to them. End hunger in the United States by all means, Mr. Biden. Also end homelessness. Deal with your own problems. Why do you keep wanting to send your military overseas to create problems in other countries? Make less warships, make more homes for your homeless. It's a simple question of mathematics. You're wasting $1 trillion on aggression. Spend some of your money on compassion to your own people.